Christian Bale has been out of the spotlight for literally years at this point, and he's finally back. Does the movie deserve him? The Bride brings Frankenstein's monster to Depression-era Chicago, where he asks a scientist to create a companion for him. So they reanimate the corpse of a murdered woman who winds up having much bigger plans than just being his partner. This is the second film directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, and it's sort of a rock and roll reimagining of the 1935 film The Bride of Frankenstein. Gyllenhaal places much more emphasis on the bride than on the monster, who in this case has adopted the name of his creator and just goes by Frankenstein or Frank. A lot of focus is put on this woman who has no memory of her past life after she's brought back from what Frankenstein tells her was an accident. And he also lies and tells her that they've been married for a long time. And pretty quickly, these two get tangled up in a murder case where they put themselves in the crosshairs of both law enforcement and gangsters alike. Jessie Buckley is playing the bride here, and as we've seen particularly in recent years, she seems incapable of taking a role without totally throwing herself at it, and she's terrific here. She's just so consistently willing to go there emotionally and physically, and this is a really difficult role to pull off. In the first scene, we see that her character is kind of possessed by Mary Shelley, who's the author of the original text Frankenstein, and there's kind of two personalities occupying her mind for the rest of the film. So at different moments, she'll slip into different accents and intonations, and she sells it all so well and is able to generate this very off-kilter energy. She's just one of the best doing it right now. And Bale, as the monster, is also really good. Even though he's in a role that doesn't allow him to do as much as I would have liked, it's great to see him back on the big screen. And he had some moments that were actually pretty funny, although I wasn't sure I was supposed to be laughing. This movie has a very confused and confusing tone. I didn't feel like I fully understood the world that the events were taking place in. Like I said, that possession happens in the first scene of the movie, so we don't get to see Jessie Buckley's character before she's sharing her brain with Mary Shelley. So she's acting very bizarre and screaming and shouting at everyone around her. It is a full-fledged possession right off the bat. And her character just is very grating and unlikable from that point onward. And the lead character in Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Lost Daughter was also highly unlikable, but there was an honesty there, and it felt grounded in an authentic emotional landscape. Whereas here, I never felt like I understood what the rules of the world were. I never felt much of a connection with the characters. The scenes between Bale and Buckley totally lack romantic tension. I never really cared if they ended up together. And also, she doesn't ask many questions for someone who's just been brought back from a severe accident and has no memory of her life. She takes a lot for granted from Bale's character, and I didn't fully understand why she wasn't asking some clarifying questions. Also, she remembers certain things at moments where it's very convenient for her to remember. It felt like she just conveniently remembered things to help bring the messages of the movie to the surface. One of those messages being that women should be heard, which is a good message. However, this character will pretty frequently cause an unnecessary scene and bring in outside characters who are investigating and just trying to do their job, and they wind up getting hurt or killed because of it. And these people are like totally innocent, so I didn't feel like that was making a very compelling case for this character making her voice heard. And she'll feel bad for it for like 15 seconds before she's on to the next thing. And this is very much and then the next thing and then the next thing kind of movie as these two travel from Chicago to New York to some other pretty scenic locations, all very well rendered. The production here is extremely detailed. Everyone behind the camera is an A-lister at their respective craft. But there's no meaningful progression or development to these events. They'll just show up somewhere, cause a scene, attract local law enforcement. The detectives will inevitably be somewhere nearby. There's a confrontation, and then the couple flees the scene. Over and over. And the detective characters are really poorly written. Peter Sarsgaard plays someone who clearly has some kind of history with the bride, and when that's brought to light, first of all, I was thinking that it sounded like it would have made for a much more interesting movie than what we ended up getting. And second of all, the way that he responds to this history and what he decides to do as a result is so pathetic and nonsensical and makes me question why he's even in the movie. His entire presence in the film builds up to essentially nothing. And the same can kind of be said of Penelope Cruz, who's playing his partner, and her performance does not feel like it belongs in this movie. I don't know if it's the direction that she was getting from Gyllenhaal, but she sticks out like a sore thumb and feels like she belongs in an entirely separate movie. But the scenes between these two detectives consist entirely of them predicting with 100% accuracy where Frankenstein and the Bride are going to pop up again. There's no intrigue in the police work because they're acting off of what the movie literally refers to as hunches, and they're right every single time. I wish they had just cut those two characters out completely and had local law enforcement confronting these two characters each time, because these scenes contribute nothing. But there's also something similar about all of the locations that this lead couple is showing up at. Christian Bale's character is obsessed with an actor in this movie played by Jake Gyllenhaal. He's developed a real connection with him because of his on-screen confidence and charisma, and there's something really interesting that could have been explored there, but it's not really fleshed out at all. But what I'm getting at is Bale and Buckley keep going to these places that have to do with this actor, and they keep getting accosted by law enforcement, and they just don't change their approach. They don't put two and two together. They just keep making the same mistake over and over again. This movie fails as a monster movie. It's not scary at all, in spite of the fact that Mary Shelley tells us in the first scene that it's gonna be scary. It doesn't work as a romance movie because I couldn't have cared less about the relationship between these two, and as a feminist statement, it doesn't land either. We see in this incredibly brief montage that like a movement has been started around the bride's words and actions. People are mimicking her appearance and fighting the system because she inspired them. They're fighting back because there's this mobster who's cutting women's tongues out and, you know, removing their ability to speak. It's so on the nose. But it feels like it's strictly an indictment of the mistreatment of women by 1930s organized crime syndicates and the accompanying negligence of law enforcement at that time. It doesn't translate smoothly to today, even though it obviously thinks it's super relevant. But again, the screenplay is so obsessed with having innocent characters be harmed or killed due to this woman's words that it just doesn't land. This is just not a successful movie. Each individual player is playing their instrument well, but they're playing in service of a vision that has no direction or conviction. It's entirely devoid of any fun, but its self-seriousness isn't earned. It's just a highly unpleasant experience without communicating anything valuable in its abrasiveness. For all of these reasons, The Bride gets a C-. I want big swings from filmmakers who have big ideas, but I have to be honest, this one did not work for me. If you've seen the movie, please let me know what you thought of it. And if you enjoyed this review, please do like and subscribe. I'll catch you at the movies.